Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? It is Thursday, December the 15th, 9 o'clock right now, here in Sioux Lookout. It is time once again for PLAR History and Geography with me, your teacher Jonathan. This is term 1B. We're wrapping up week number 5 of this term 1B. Again, students, class, feel free to listen, participate by just simply calling the Wassel Studio. You can listen live right now, either at home or at your learning center. Yes, I do understand that some learning center are not open at the moment, but again, you can always try to take that initiative and call in home or log onto Smart Bridget at home on your laptop, computer, and still engage with us as well. If you can't, that's fine too. Again, there's always review materials on the archive page on my YouTube channel that I post on my Facebook link as well. As you work on your assignments and do your lessons, if you have any questions, again, I encourage you to give me a call, send me a message, email, Facebook, get a hold of me any way you can. Again, I don't know if you need help unless you tell me. Remember, I'm here to help. I want everyone to be successful. We want to achieve all the same goals. So again, if you have any questions, don't be discouraged. Let me know. I am here to help. Again, when you submit your assignments, again, you can always get your DC to scan it, fax it to us here at WASA. It will come to me in my inbox. I will mark it, provide you feedback, and let you know how you are progressing throughout the course. Again, make sure you initial each page or put your name on each page, your community, so that we know your work is by you. Okay, so again, like I mentioned, I am not traveling until after the holiday break. Again, going to Mish and going to Big Trout after the holiday break. Other than that, not much announcements to say. Last class, we wrapped up the history portion of this course, where we wrapped up lesson number 3. So again, that is now done. Again, last class, let's do a quick review. We touched upon the Constitution Act and women's role in Canadian politics. Again, our last class learning goals were we learned about the Canadian Constitution and we will learn about women in Canadian politics. Again, hopefully you are now able to explain our success criteria that I posted on the screen. Again, the Canada Act, Constitution Act came into effect in 1982. Constitution Act, Canada Act, same thing. It gives Canada complete control over its own constitution without Britain's permission. It includes the Charter of Rights and Freedom. All province and territories sign on to the Constitution except for Quebec. Brian Mulroney was Canada's Prime Minister in the 80s, and he wanted to improve Canada's relationship with the United States and free trade, and he wanted to please Quebec since Quebec did not sign on to the Constitution. And as a result, again, free trade with the United States, we'll talk more about that today. But since Quebec didn't sign on to the Constitution, Mulroney tried to get Quebec to sign on to it with something known as the Meech Lake Accord. It did not pass. It was not successful because of many factors. It was supposed to recognize Quebec as a distinct society. That did not happen because Elijah Harper stepped up and recognized Aboriginal rights and how if Quebec was to be treated differently, why can't First Nation be treated differently as well? So again, controversial issue, tension between both sides, and eventually it was never passed. Again, Bruni stepped up again and tried again with the Charlottetown Accord in 1992. Same provision, same goal. A vote happened, and a vote came out as no. Again, it did not pass, and Quebec still did not sign on to the Constitution. Then we looked at key women in Canadian politics, mainly governor generals in Canada and one prime minister, Jean Saab, Adrienne Clarkson, Michelle Jean, and Kim Campbell. We looked at how these individuals, these women, broke down challenges, fought for equality rights, done things that was never happened before, such as being the first female women Canadian as Governor General and first women to be Prime Minister. Again, huge accomplishment in terms of equality, in terms of women, women's role, women's right, and in politics overall. So what? And then last class we wrapped things up by looking at assignment number 8. Those questions, again, simple 4 questions, 3 questions. That was 16 marks. Again, that should now be completed. And then we wrap things up by posting my little mark sheet. Again, like I mentioned, all assignments for the history half needs to be attempted and completed, at least attempted, before you can write your test. So again, PLAR history has 8 assignments. We looked at Canadian history since the early 1900s, went through different decades, time periods, different international events that took place in Canada, World War One, World War Two, the 20s, the 30s, the Great Depression, what happened to in terms of certain groups, individuals in Canada, in certain different time period, tensions within our own country, such as the Quiet Revolution in Quebec, and we wrap things up by looking at the Constitution Act and free trade. So again, lots of topic. Obviously, we just touch on all of them just briefly. There's so much more that we can dive into. Again, class, if you want to talk about something, discuss something in class, let me know. We'll be more than happy to spend some time in class to discuss those topics to broaden your interests and to broaden your knowledge. So the goal for today is to start geography, PLAR geography, the second half of this course. Again, this is the social study component of PLAR. It's history and geography into one course. If you complete this entire course, you'll get both credit in terms of history and geography. And as you know, grade 9, it's required that you have a grade 9 geography credit, and it's required that you have a grade 10 history credit as well. So again, by completing PLAR, you should complete those 2 requirements and those 2 courses that you need to get your diploma. So again, for geography, PLAR geography, we also have 8 more assignments that needs to be completed. We are focusing on lesson 4 and lesson 5, human geography, and then after the holidays, we'll start physical geography, which is a big lesson in terms of lesson number 5. Looking at our course schedule, roughly, we are, like I said, we're at week number 5 of this term, so we should be close to or at the halfway point. Yes, history is now done. We're kind of like a class ahead of schedule, which is okay. You can always add things as well, but again, our goal today is to start lesson number 4 for geography. So again, same expectation, no changes, same course. Again, your success criteria, your self-assessment when you're doing your assignments. Again, I want to emphasize to be clear, be precise, use full, complete sentence, well structured, add details with supporting facts and evidence from your textbook. Check for spelling, check for grammar. Again, always trying to improve our literacy skills in writing, articulating, Again, it's not so much about the collection of facts and knowledge, but it's how we articulate our thinking, critical thinking, thinking outside the box, using examples that we have known throughout our lives, in our communities, and to be flexible thinkers in terms of what we know today may not necessarily apply tomorrow, etc. Write neatly, write legibly so I can read it and mark it. Again, feel free to type out your answers as well. Again, always willing to accommodate and modify. So again, you don't always have to write it all out. If you have access to a printer at your learning center, if you want to type it out, if it's faster, by all means, go ahead and do it. All right, so let's get started with today's class. We're looking at geography, lesson number 4. Okay, we're starting the second half of this course. Like I said, this is the social studies component, looking at history and geography. You'll see a lot of some topics overlap and how they link and connect to one another, which is absolutely great because it leads to more discussion, it broadens our knowledge and understanding. But in terms of social studies, history and geography helps us to, one, understand the time, okay? Understand the time period, which decade it took place. Again, I can relate to geography as well. History and geography also helps us to understand the cause and effect. Okay, there's always a cause and effects. What caused it? And what was the outcome? What led to it? What was the lasting impact? Okay, the cause and effect. Again, same thing for geography. 3 helps us to understand what continues and what changes. Okay, things are always changing in our society, our way of living, and even our communities. Again, you can always think of examples in terms of what changed in your community. Okay, it could be different rules, different policy, different stores, different climates. But what changes and what stays the same as well? Okay, what has been there since a long period of time, and what changes? Okay, history and geography help us to achieve that. 4, it helps us to recognize and participate in a common memory. And 5, it helps us to develop historical empathy, understanding, and sharing feelings. Again, that's how history and geography relates to one another. But in terms of lesson number 4, human geography, which is what we are discussing today, this starts on page 28 in your textbook. Again, just want to say that everything is exactly the same in terms of your textbook and your workbook questions. I have not changed anything from last term, last year. Everything is the same. Okay, perhaps I'll change it in the future for next year. Some questions, some content, but in terms of what we're discussing right now, it's exactly the same from last term and last year. So again, if you have the old textbook, it is okay. If you have the old workbook, that is okay too. Everything's exactly the same. Even if you have the old study guide, the core syllabus, things are slightly different from that. But again, my contact info is exactly the same. So again, hopefully you're on page 28 in your workbook and you can follow along as we tackle lesson number 4, looking at geography, more specifically human geography. So I want to note that in terms of the geography half, there are lots of definition, so don't feel overwhelmed. It's just the way it is, just a lot of definitions. So if I highlight something, if I emphasize something, if you see something in textbook that's highlighted in bold or capital letters, good indication that you'll see it again in terms of your assignment. So let's get to today's learning goal for this lesson. Today we are, again, you are, and what I am, we are learning about human geography. We're learning about human geography. Our success criteria is after we have done this lesson, You can say that I can explain the pros and cons of NAFTA, and I can list examples of human rights. Again, little checklist, little self-assessment. Hopefully we can nail these points and understand these points once we are done. So again, looking at human geography, mainly looking at NAFTA, human rights, economic geography, and so forth. Alright, let's get to some definitions. Let's explain some of these terms so that we can have a better understanding. Human geography. What is human geography? Are there any guesses? Any thought? Any clue? Any ideas of what human geography? Well, human geography is the human branch, human political and cultural branch of geography. Okay, so again, it includes a lot of topics. It's such a broad definition, but it's the human political and cultural branch when dealing with geography. In other words, it's how we humans adapt ourselves to our community, our land, to other people, their environment, politics, cultural, is how we all link to one another. Okay, that's human geography. Okay, again, it's such a broad definition. Uh, we will be talking about three branches that expands from human geography. We'll be looking at economics, urbanism, and military or militarism geography. Okay, so economic geography, urban geography, and military geography. Okay, we're gonna branch off of that when looking at human geography. But again, human geography is just how we connect to other people, other countries, the land, the environment, how we use different resources, how we socialize, the healthcare, the religion, the region, the demographic, the population, nationalism, different language, that all relates to human geography. Okay, and the list goes on and on and on as well. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But human geography is, like I said, the human political and cultural branch of geography. It's how we adapt ourselves and how we connect to the land, the space, not outer space, but the space, the region, resources, how we take advantage of it, how we use it to our advantage, how we trade goods back and forth, our relationship with other communities. That all deals with human geography. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, let me know. We can always go back and look at it to broaden your understanding, or you can simply just Google, do a bit of research on your own in terms of inquiry skills that you can develop as well. You Again, you're not just limited to what is in your textbook. Again, feel free to do additional research, use other textbook, secondary, primary sources, sources on the internet, on the web, go to the archive. There's many ways to expand our interests as well. Again, if you have any interest class in a particular topic, let me know. I would love to integrate it into our class so that you can feel that connection in terms of what you would like to learn and how it relates to this course. Again, this is your course. I wanted to gear it towards your interests. Again, just not necessarily have to be what's in the textbook. We're just covering what's in your textbook because it's a question that's outlined in your assignments, and it will help you in terms of completing your tests at the end. So we're going to branch off and look at one aspect of human geography. Okay, again, there's three. Okay, note three that I put a little box beside. Economic, urban, and military. But we're going to start things off by looking at economic geography today. We will look at urbanism and military, the other two section, a subsection of human geography next week. Okay, but today we're going to focus on economic geography. Again, what is economic geography? It's such a broad definition, but we're gonna try to define it in terms of what it is in your textbook. Again, this is on page 28 in your textbook. So economic geography is the study of a widely varying economic condition across the earth. It's influenced by three areas, topics, but again, it could be more. Climate, okay, climate. Again, depending on where we live around the world, which community, which area, we have different natural resources and have different agriculture, forestry, and productivity as well. So again, whether we live in this province or a different province, we know that Manitoba, Saskatchewan, the prairies have great agriculture, so they take advantage of that. But again, different countries in terms of different climate, we all have and use to our advantage different resources, different agriculture, different forestry. Yes, we have tons of forestry here in Northern Ontario, and productivity as well. Two, geology is the study of rocks and how the land is formed and shaped and the land formation. Again, some communities, some areas are more flats, more hills, more rocks. Again, how we live on the land is what geology is all about. And three, social political factors. Again, different rules, different political aspects and factors that influence our lives as well and our community. It all goes back into products, sales, and materials. Okay, how we sell products to one another, how we trade items and goods to one another, and how we take advantage of that as well. And that all leads to economics, okay, the wealth, the condition across the earth, and it varies in terms of different factors. Again, in some areas we may have more products, more items that we produce that we can only produce in that particular region. So again, think of fruits and vegetables. They can only be grown in warm climate temperature. So again, that's why shipping it to different countries and different communities can be expensive. But again, it goes back into supply and demand, what we want, what we don't want, and how we get those items. Developed countries such as Canada, we have a good and developed economy and trades. Okay, so we have a good relationship with other countries and how we trade items back and forth. So again, there's a little paragraph in your little textbook on page 28 that deals with economic geography. Trade surplus, again, more definition that relates to economic geography, also on page 28 in your textbook. Okay, the definition is there. It's also on the screen right now. Trade surplus is a country with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. I'll say that again. A country with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. So in other words, a trade surplus is when a country has more items, goods to give away than receive. Okay, so example is Canada. We don't necessarily need a lot of different resources from other countries. So, but we give away what we have to other countries in terms of less developed countries than what we need. Okay, a trade surplus can also be classified as the amount by which the value of a country's exports exceeds the cost of its import. So again, we give away more than what we take. Okay, so import versus export. So giving, receiving relates to trade surplus. Again, that definition is also in that same paragraph dealing with economic geography on page 28. A country with more goods to export to another country than goods to import. Next, we're going to look at NAFTA once again. We have touched on NAFTA briefly when we looked at history, but we're going to dive in a little deeper. Again, NAFTA, NAFTA, NAFTA stands for the North American Free Trade Agreement. Again, we should have that knowledge already in our back pocket. It was signed on January 1st, 1994. Again, it consists of us, Canada, the United States, and Mexico, where we can trade goods back and forth between all three countries, Canada, United States, and Mexico, without paying additional taxes. Again, whether or not this agreement will continue in terms of what's going on in American politics can be a debates for later on, but right now, Canada, United States, and Mexico, we can trade goods and items, products back and forth without paying additional taxes. Okay, sounds great. Again, the goal is to remove as many tax as possible on goods. Yes, we still pay some tax on some items, but again, some items we don't have to pay tax on. So again, less money for us to spend, more for us to use as well. That's the initial goal and purpose in the design of NAFTA. When we're looking at NAFTA, there's always pros and cons when looking at NAFTA. There are good things and there are bad things. Yes, the initial purpose, objective of NAFTA sounds great, but is it really great? What are the benefits of it? What are the consequences of it? Okay, what are the goods and bad, the pros and cons of NAFTA? Do some like it? Do some dislike it? Let's dive into that right now. So NAFTA, the benefit, the good. Again, it's supposed to remove as much additional taxes and tariffs as possible. Again, some items could include motor vehicles, automotive parts, computer, textiles, and agriculture. Okay, these are just some examples that we can now trade without paying additional taxes. It also protects property rights, trademarks, and copyrights. Okay, so again, what was already established is now protected. It leads to economic growth. We have more of what we want, and it increases our standard of living by us being more happy, by us being more satisfied in terms of what we have, what we can get from other countries, such as the United States and Mexico, that we may not necessarily have in our own country. So again, all sounds great. We can get what we want. We just have to pay for it without paying additional taxes. It leads to growth. It leads to standard of living because we're not happy. We get what we want. Same thing. Okay, so again, that's the benefits of looking at NAFTA, the good side of it. Okay, always want to start with the good, and now I'm going to transition in terms of looking at the bad. Not necessarily the bad, but in terms of the controversy. Okay, controversies or disputes about NAFTA. Canada and the United States often oppose NAFTA because we fear that jobs will be moved to Mexico due to lower wages. Politicians, political experts, economics believe that Canada would be turned into a branch plant. Again, in other words, meaning we have more influence by the United States that our companies, our Canadian companies, are now being lost to other countries such as the United States and Mexico. Farmers in Mexico have opposed it because they have a heavy agriculture subsidy that they have to pay, detrimental non-economic impact on health and the environment. We'll touch more about that on the next slide. Poverty has risen in Mexico, wages dropped by 20%. It leads to more increase of illegal immigrants in the United States and Mexico. So again, NAFTA can be seen as good, but when expanding about it, there are some factors that can be seen as controversies as well. In your textbook, there's a whole page or two on page 30 and 31 that deals with controversies and examples of NAFTA. Okay, chapter 11 is the clause in NAFTA that's on page 31 that deals and relates to environmental and health factors. This clause, known as Chapter 11, allows corporations to sue federal government if they feel regulation or government decision has affected their investment. So again, if the government passes a regulation that affects your company, you can now sue the federal government. It scares the government from passing environmental regulation. So again, it scares them off. For example, there is this Canadian company known as Methodex. It's sued the United States claiming that California banned the substance in their water system, which hurt their cells. Okay, do you see that connection right there? Where California banned the substance in their water system, so now it affects this Canadian company known as Methodex in terms of what they can sell and make profit off. Again, there's more examples in terms of Chapter 11, in terms of the bankruptcy clause in NAFTA. We're not going to dive into great details about that, but you can always go back into your textbook, skim through it, okay, read it. Again, always make sure you go back and try to read or at least highlight and skim through your textbook in terms of the content. Again, I'm not going to cover every single detail in your textbook in great depth. I'm just trying to pull out some terms, some definitions, some examples that relates what that will help you in terms of completing your assignments. So just keep that in mind. So again, note that we don't always need to know all the examples, all the definitions, great details. Yes, we need to know them to an extent, but again, just keep that in mind when doing your assignments. Page 33, this is the next page. Next topic. Human rights. Again, just expand on what we already talked about in terms of the Bill of Rights and the Charter of Rights and Freedom. But initially, government of many countries of the world violate the human rights of their citizens. It has been suggested that Canada should try to discourage those abusive to trying to trade with human rights. So in other words, Canada, for example, should not trade with other countries that abuse or violate human rights. So we should only trade with other countries that respect and protect human rights. What is human rights? Again, something that we all should have as humans, regardless of where we live, which community, which country we are living. Human rights means people have the right to freedom, the right to earn fair wages, the right to move around the countries or the community, the right to freedom of speech, the right to different religion, culture, traditional practices, and the right from protection from danger. That is human rights. Again, many believe that Canada should only trade with countries that protects and promote human rights. Again, not all countries right now around the world has this notion and idea of human rights or protects human rights. Again, we're trying to fix it, trying to promote it, trying to spread the awareness and word around so that we can all have human rights that are not violated by others, the government, or other organizations. But again, freedom, trust, justice, what is fair, love, the rule of law, where it applies to everyone, we're all equal, peace, prosperity, or dignity, and equality. These are all human rights. Again, just note some of these examples. You don't need to know all of them, but just know some examples of human rights. Again, if you have a good understanding of what Charter of Rights is all about, again, simply the same idea here. So let's get to assignment number 9, questions. Okay, we don't want to go into more details right now. We just started a brand new subject. We just started a brand new lesson. So let's try to slow things down a little bit and stop with right there. And let's get to assignment number 9. Again, same expectation throughout. Same thing as history and geography. Assignment number 9, set of 18 marks. Name 3 main topics of human geography. We have touched on one so far today, which is economics. The other 2 is urbanism and militarism, okay, which we will discuss more and define next week, next class. Question 2, what is economic geography? Again, definition, we defined it, it's in your textbook. Look for that key term that's highlighted in bold and capital letters. What is human geography? Again, you can always say, so that's 1, economic. And then we'll touch on the next 2 next week. Again, urbanism and militarism. So again, you can always start by saying economic geography is or the study of is looking at this. However you want to phrase it in 4 complete sentences. That's out 2 marks right there. Again, number 3, more definition. What is a trade surplus? Again, you can simply say, start with saying a trade surplus. You can always start off in this method. A trade surplus is this. It's when a country has more exports than import. That's out 2 marks. Question number 6. I think we skipped a few questions, or I forgot to include some questions. So question number 6, there should be a question that deals with what are the benefits of NAFTA. We'll try to find out in a moment, but question number 6 deals with there have been many controversies since NAFTA took place. Provides details about 3 of these controversies. Okay, I have listed a few examples. Again, it's on page 30 and 31 if you want to refer to his textbooks. Again, list 3 controversies of NAFTA. What the 3 bad side or the 3 disputes when looking at NAFTA. Okay, chapter 11 could be one, environmental could be one, farmers in Mexico have to pay heavy agriculture subsidy could be one, the fear of lost jobs could be another one. Again, lots of different examples. And the last question should be, what are human rights? Again, human rights is give some examples. Protecting freedom, right to freedom of religion, freedom of speech. That is human rights. Let's try to find that question that we have missed. There it is. So question 4, question 5. Okay. So question 4 is, what does NAFTA stand for? Again, we should have that knowledge already. North American Free Trade Agreement. And what countries are part of this agreement? Again, we should already have that as well. So again, we should not need a textbook, but again, it's there. Canada, United States, and Mexico. And why does these countries want this agreement? What are the benefits of the good side when looking at NAFTA? Okay. Yes, it promotes free trade and we're going to pay additional taxes, but feel free to list some examples of what items that we can trade back and forth without paying additional taxes, what we can now protect, copyright, trademarks as well. Again, that's all on page 29 in your textbook. So again, a lot of information, a lot of terminology, a lot of definitions that we have discussed in class. We have started geography now. History is now done, which I will definitely miss because I love looking at history and talking about history and debating about it. But again, geography is great too. We'll have a lot of connection that we can make as we navigate through lesson 4 and lesson 5. So again, please continue to work on your assignments. Again, if any questions, please let me know. We are 1 week away from the holidays. We have 2 more classes next Tuesday and next Thursday. And then we're off for 2 weeks for the holidays. So again, please continue to work hard on these assignments. I do understand that some learning center in some communities are off after tomorrow on Friday. So you may not necessarily have access to your learning center, but you do have your textbook. You do have me. You can always ask questions if you still want to work on your assignments. Again, we're still have class next week. Next week is the last week before the holidays. So again, please tune in. Please come to class. Please talk to us. Engage with us, with me, your teacher. I'd love to have some excitement, some engagement. We will continue looking at lesson 4 in human geography next Tuesday. And then we should be able to start lesson 5 a week from today. Okay, I'll stop it here for today. And I'll see everyone back here next week on Tuesday at the same slot. Stay warm.